with me the word. It will be quite a hard time for me because I'm a speaker who is used to run around, you know, when he's speaking, and now I have obviously to stay here to make it, of course, then we have a nice panel behind. I try to do my best. You know, I had a very interesting discussion with one of my colleagues, Diane Panze from India, a couple of weeks ago when we started our second cewas batch, and he told me, you know, according to the latest data in India, 60% of the Indian population actually use mobile phones, actually own a mobile phone, 60%, and exactly, well, nearly exactly the same figure, 60% of the people in India still actually practice open defecation. That's quite interesting. It probably could have actually a certain impact on how to consider private sector-oriented approaches to sanitation, because money is most likely not in all the cases the issue, but you know, we're talking about, you know, closing the gaps, and there is obviously a clear lack of business capacity for sustainable sanitation and water management. I'm not talking about the large guys like Veolia and so on. I'm talking, say, the middle-sized, say, SMEs who can actually go quite deep into the society and work on a participatory basis, you know, together with the people to explore actually opportunities to solve the problems in sustainable sanitation, water management. And you know what we actually are doing in cewas, we support young entrepreneurs. We established a startup center. It's actually a physical center where people come together. We do right now have a course running with actually a couple of, I think we have 6 startups attending the course. The headquarters of this startup center is in Willisau in Switzerland. You know, Switzerland is not well, it actually is a small country, just comes with 1/3 of the population of Cairo. But this very small village is very famous because actually it's the host of one of the most famous jazz festivals. But it's also now, in the meanwhile, the host, of course, of cewas. You know, it's a physical place. People meet, people actually develop their own ideas, you know, because there is a huge market. Actually, we support really the entrepreneurs from the very beginning, really to develop business ideas, to develop business models, business plans, into really contacting customers, into actually going into fundraising, starting up projects and so on. We consider water and sanitation as a field of challenges, opportunities, really, which can be transferred into business ideas. And you know, our first batch, which actually started last year and is now actually completed or terminated, proved that we were able to already launch 6 young and innovative and also integral business units working in the field of sustainable sanitation and water management. And the gate of success is, we call it the triple R approach, you know, resource, recovery and reuse-based business models. I think there's a huge, you know, potential behind. I don't have to repeat, you know, many people are talking about that, actually, there is actually a potential behind. Problem is, you know, how actually to grab the potential. I had quite an interesting talk with some people, you know, from the actually investors at the stock exchange in Zurich a couple of months ago. I was actually able to introduce cewas to investors and also to actually innovators. And you know, then actually the investors they were approaching said, you know, this is exactly what we need, because there are lots of good ideas out there, specifically in the field of sustainable sanitation and water management. We have good, you know, motivated people, you know, but they will never be able to make actually the business flying, because you know, they have a lack of knowledge how to do so. And this is exactly where we jump in. So cewas really closes the gap, the capacity gap, you know, and supports entrepreneurs to make their resource recovery and reuse-based business models running. And there is also kind of formula behind it. We take actually the concept of sustainable sanitation and water management and actually merge it with integrity management, because this is a unique selling proposition for the business. It's not just doing, say, content-wise good work, but also approach-wise. It means, you know, really taking the sustainable sanitation and water management approach, but also do it in another way, in a new way, you know, taking corruption into consideration and really be fair, be open, transparent, and accountable in the business they do. And actually this then leads really to sustainable sector development. Due to the time, I will not go into the details of the course. It just shows we start with basic actually training in sustainable sanitation and water management, and proceed to business model development, business plan development, and end up with a coaching which actually can last for months until the business units start to fly. It's embedded, you know, behind cewas is a huge network, and it's quite similar to the toolbox. network, of course, it's a family. It's Susanna, which is also linked up. And what is very important for the African context, you see it here, that's actually ICLE. We have a very close cooperation with ICLE Africa, not just ICLE Global, but ICLE Africa. We are headquartered in Cape Town in South Africa, and actually we have close cooperation with them also to disseminate the approach of cewas to the African countries. And this is also what leads me now, well, for probably some further information. We have a think tank, international experts providing the young startups, you could call it with a backpack of senior expertise they can use, and of course also helps them to go into networking. We have, I was mentioning that we were already able to make some of the businesses flying. I do not go into the details, but it's ranging really from water footprinting to concept wash to go into eutrophication things. You can name it. Behind the entire cewas development is a story we started, financed by the German Development Corporation based on a PPP project with sustainable sanitation capacity development in India, then actually extended it into SSWM, sustainable sanitation and water management. Actually expanded it also geographically. We actually were partnering up with partners from Nepal and the Philippines, and then actually we started really to think about how could we transfer it to Africa, and added a new approach, and this is now really, this is what I'm talking about, the business of the private sector activation approach, and this is what brings us now to African, at the very beginning, to the Southern African countries. We intend to transfer cewas, with business startup platform training programs, the entire concept to Southern African countries. We just were conducting a workshop, a stakeholder workshop a couple of weeks ago in Zambia, and we will actually establish a very close cooperation. Well, you cannot read it, would be here with ASASA, actually with a national professional association body of Zambia to transfer cewas to the countries. Behind is actually a strategy. We want really just we want to help actually to stimulate the demand, but of course then we want to support the entrepreneurs to develop the businesses. It's an interaction. We need actually demand, but for entrepreneurs we have to respond, but at the same time we will start to create a further demand and so on. This is what is behind what we will do. We will actually first, and this is already what Dorothee was talking about, as a basic actually tool we will develop, with African step, within the SSWM toolbox. We will do some awareness raising, sensitization workshops, and also, this is a new thing, it's not on here, we will actually start with so-called cewas ateliers, very short, interventions of 2 days where the potential entrepreneurs can learn a little bit what it means to be an entrepreneur, where they can also feel a little bit whether they are entrepreneurial or not, in order to be able to decide whether then they would like to attend the full program, which is then actually lasts for 3 months, including the coaching, nearly 1 year. So we will of course do then the cewas business development and training, and we want to promote at the same time the South-South exchange. We try to pair up with our young startups. We try to partner startups in Africa. An example is Concept Wash. Priscilla Malabande from Harare in Zimbabwe. She's already working quite closely together with a Swiss company, and I think that's a good approach. And with some handshakes from our previous startup people from last year, I would like to close my presentation. What we have here, I'm sorry now I move, but I think that's not any longer that important. I have just some flyers about cewas, which I probably could pass. Well, no, I will do that myself when the next speaker is. Help yourself with some copies. Take also, you're very much invited not to take only one, but to take a couple and distribute it. This is then very effective. Elizabeth was also very good in advertising now for the side event, and I do a little bit advertising, of course, now for cewas. Thank you very much.